Hello and welcome to this episode of Phoenix Women. Stories of women who have risen up from the ashes, sharing ways that they have overcome difficulties and challenges in their lives and stepped fully into their fiery selves. Hello, I am Jane Mary. I am a women's empowerment and pleasure coach, intuitive healer and shamanic practitioner based on the Mid Wales Shropshire border. I'm here to help women remember, reclaim and rejoice in all their being, in who they are. You can find more about my work at janemary.co.uk. And this podcast is shared with you with the intention to inspire and support you through any life challenges or just day-to-day challenges. If you hear anything in this podcast that may bring things up for you, just take a moment to check in with yourself, maybe a bit of movement, some breath, reach out to a friend, resource yourself in a way that works for you. The intention for this podcast is always to support and inspire you. So take the steps to prioritize you and what you need. Another disclaimer is that there might be swearing. Hopefully not, but you never know. So if you're with children, just check in with an appropriate time to listen. So today I'm very excited to welcome the wonderful and beautiful, glorious Ruth Cato. Ruth is, what do I need to say? So Ruth is a colleague. She is a dear friend and sister, and I'm super excited to have her here. She is a wonderful, incredible shamanic practitioner, shamanic healer, based on the Shropshire, Hereford, Wales border near Ludlow, and she offers the most incredible work with her year-long what do you call it, like year-long women's initiation?
Yeah,
Magical
a year of initiating women.
And you offer lots of incredible workshops, and you've got something amazing coming next year as well, which I'm sure you can tell us a little bit more at the end about. I'm wondering, do I need to share how we met, or shall I let you introduce yourself a little bit, Ruth? What would you like to do?
Share how we met. That would be cool. Yeah.
Okay. So how we met. So I remember, I saw this video. I think I've probably shared this with you, Ruth. I saw this video on social media, and it was this woman talking all about this juicy stuff about spirituality and the history of, mythology and how we can integrate this into the daily life. And she was doing a introduction to spirituality, and this was in like 2018, and everything she was saying, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this sounds really interesting. And she was saying about a workshop, and I thought, well, the workshop itself I wasn't drawn to, but when I heard this woman talking, I was like, I have to meet this woman. And I went along to this workshop and walked in and saw you, Ruth, and it was your workshop in Shrewsbury, and I knew everything that you said was just landing within my body, like, oh yes, this is exactly why I was here. Yes, I was like, this is amazing. And I think it was from then I started, I came to have some one-to-one sessions with you and joined your Dark Moon Circle, which, yeah, that in itself was just pure gold. And I think from there, I joined your year-long initiation group in 2020. Of all the years to do it, hey? And yeah, we've just seemed to have blossomed and kind of doing this whole thing alongside each other with, just so many incredible women doing this work right now. It just feels so magic. So that's a little bit of how we met and how we've got here. So do you want to introduce yourself, or what's, with where you're at today?
I just want to say thank you, Jane, because that introduction, it just makes me think that you and we've just stood side by side the whole time. It's been really, really potent. And what you have brought to those workshops when you were attending and now that you're holding space, that's been really crucial for me in my work and in my development and our friendship and our we talk a lot about, don't we, shoulder to shoulder, being shoulder to shoulder in this and this new way of being, and I just feel like you have been a massive and really important part of that for me, so really grateful for that and for you and for your work and for you doing this podcast, so thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Amazing. Yeah, it's it brings in such, I just feel like I just want to breathe out and relax, because I think in this culture of like anxiety, really, isn't it? Everything's very heightened, and I think having people that you work with or in your circle or surrounding you that are just, yeah, we've got you, just on your whole body and your system is enormous, isn't it? So yeah, I have such huge gratitude to you, because I think this side by side thing is we're not individuals, are we? It expands between us all, and affects us all. So yeah,
we're figuring it out together, aren't we? Because this is such a new way of being and such a new way of working, and at the same time it doesn't feel like it's new and unknown. It just feels like we don't know it yet, but it feels so good to be together and to do this work and to it's like you're channeling something through, aren't we? We're just, you said, I don't even remember that video that you saw me talking on. And it does seem to work like that, this work. It's like, oh, I've got to talk about something to do with that right now. And instead of me getting up in my head about what needs to be said and all the exact details of what needs to be brought through, it's let's just speak and see what needs to be said, and it just comes through, and then the person that needs to hear that thing hears that thing, and it has a big impact, and then this thing grows and your work grows, and all of the women doing this amazing work is just, I'm just watching it like a blooming flower just blossoming and blossoming and blossoming at the moment, isn't it? It's powerful and it's beautiful, and it's affected every bit of my life, and I watch it affecting every bit of your life for the better.
Oh, hugely. There's no part of my life that it hasn't touched, and then it just expands and you can just see it rippling out. I know it's the cliche, isn't it, when they pick the ripple effect, but that's how it works, yeah. And I love how you say about when you're talking, you don't really, it just comes out. And I'm often fascinated, actually, when you say something and you think, oh, that's not very significant, but it lands with somebody and you can see it really hit them, and it's like, I don't even know what I just said. And it could have just been the tiniest little comment that didn't seem that important, or
and that's when we've allowed ourselves to be the hollow bone, as we call it. It's not holding too tightly onto our ego and our brain and just letting it flow through. And I can just feel when the goddess or whoever it is you want to phrase it as is just speaking through us, or and because that's when people have these amazing aha moments. And also it's when you go away from sharing that thing, be that in a workshop or on a call or whatever, and you go away and you're feeling really nourished, as well.
Yeah, such a good feeling. I'm wondering, so hearing you chatting then of, we work together quite a lot, and so the idea of, I'm just thinking of people listening, the idea of channeling or the work of the goddess and things might feel quite alien. So, and I know for myself it was almost like a big kind of stepping out, coming out of, this is who I am, this is kind of what I do, and I could, that was a process in itself. I wonder if that was something you ever experienced or still experiencing, like this idea of integrating this into the everyday and speaking quite openly with people about this work.
Yeah, so I'm probably a really good person to talk about that because yeah, that's been such a big challenge for me. And when I started, I think must have been 2018. And I remember sitting in a session with somebody and in a one-to-one shamanic healing session. So sitting with them and an angel came through. And I'm just channeling and bringing through whatever is here in that moment through love or through whatever intentions we're setting. And this angel arrived and I was so in my like humanness and my sort of cultured brain, and I was really apologetic. I was like, well, it's a bit embarrassing. I think this is an angel, and the woman I was sat with totally open to the idea of angels. And I was feeling really ridiculous, like she's come to me for this information and I'm apologizing for the fact that it's coming through. Um, and yeah, I'm still not the best person to go out there and chat to anybody on the street about, you know, the magic. I am much more comfortable inside my space with my people. There, I'm super comfortable talking about this work, but I know what it feels like to be out there in I call it like the ordinary reality out there, and feel like you have to quieten down a part of you or an expression. You know, it's classic witch wound stuff, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it runs deep, doesn't it? Yeah, and I know that's a lot of the work that you do, a lot of the work I do of kind of healing that. And I think it's probably, you know, the way that as we started the conversation, the way we're working together and the other incredible women we work with is part of healing that, isn't it? And I
How
think,
safe do you feel? You know, how safe do you feel? Can you feel safe being yourself in any place with any people and talking your truth, being your authenticity, allowing it to shine through, you know?
yeah, absolutely. So I suppose if someone's listening and they're kind of, that's resonating with them, you know, with that, you know, would you suggest starting off in safer spaces, really, to start talking about, you know, what it is that they want to share?
Yeah. So if you're somebody that that feels this work and this world is for you, and it just feels really scary, and maybe you have a bit of internal chatter or external chatter about, you know, putting down the idea of angels or the goddess, or maybe it just sounds really weird, because it does in the culture that we've been brought up in. It does sound weird. And I remember, I'll talk about circles in a second, but I do remember a great woman years ago saying to me that she was trying to change that narrative within herself. And she said to me that instead of saying, oh my God, she was making sure that every time she said, oh my goddess, to challenge herself and to challenge those around her. And it's not a bad thing being challenged. Like, it's a really good thing to face that rising feeling of judgment or challenge if it's something that's actually true for you, because that is how we get through to our authenticity. You know, we sit with it, we breathe with it, and we normalize it. You know, it's when you actually start thinking about it and feeling into it, the fact that we are in our Western culture, it's totally normal for us to refer to a god. I was watching a program the other day and he misgendered Isis. He said God. Isis is a goddess, okay? And he said the god, this god, Isis, because everyone's idea especially in an English culture or a Western culture, is that any sort of sovereign being has to be masculine. And what that does to us as women is just enormous. And that might sound like that's like overthinking things, but I promise you it is not, because it means that we grow up totally internalizing that anything that is important or holy or sacred has to be masculine and to act in a masculine way and look in a masculine way. And actually, when you start to dig into goddess culture and you start to realize, well, it makes complete sense that we would be worshipping a goddess, maybe rather than or as well as a god, and the two work together, you know. But the earth is a goddess, Mother Earth, and everything is born from the feminine. You know, how can we not worship that?
Yeah. As you're talking, I'm just feeling my body, and I think on our mind, when we can hear that just people believing in believing in a god or anything of power being a god, physiologically on our body that has an impact, you know, in every way possible, whether it's our throat or within our pelvis, within our nervous system. And so imagine, you know, coming into this world, and if we can speak freely now for our children and for all women, that there's this balance of power that is masculine and feminine, you know, that there's opportunity and possibility for everybody, the impact that's going to have on our bodies. Oh, yeah.
It just frees us up in every way, doesn't it?
Completely.
And it frees men up too. It frees men up to be their feminine selves. It frees them up to feel their feelings. You know, look at the suicide rates for men. Like,
yeah,
they need to be allowed to express their feelings. That's the feminine. That's the goddess.
Yeah.
We all need to honor and worship the feminine in this time of shift and change, because look where only one sort of sovereign has got us to.
Yeah, and I think there's a fear, isn't there, that if it's not patriarchal, then it's got to be matriarchal, and it's the battle, isn't it, of the power over, and neither of them are good. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. And some people get really excited about the idea of matriarchy, and that's wonderful if you do. But yeah, I'm really interested in that. I think matriarchal is also patriarchal, because patriarchy is not necessarily masculine, it's just power over. So both of those things are one type of person having power over another. And what we need, like we said at the beginning, is shoulder to shoulder, isn't it?
Yeah, no one wins if there's power over, do they? It's just, you know.
No. And no one wins, but also no one gets, you know, we lose out on relationship too. We all lose out on intimacy and love because somebody is feeling hard done by.
That's so true. So I'm wondering, so with the podcast being called Phoenix Women, you are the ultimate Phoenix woman, Ruth. I'm wondering if there's on, you know, something that's a challenge that's happened in your life, or something that you've overcome that you wanted to share today, or particularly with the emphasis of any challenge you had and how you overcame that. You know, what things support you, either in the everyday or through a period in your life.
Yeah. So as I thought about that, I came up with a fairly general and fairly big answer to this. So I'll just summarize it as much as I can. Maybe there's a book in this, but yeah. So realizing that I was challenged with everything. There came a point, it was when I became a mother for the first time, that I was able to realize, because at that point, when I was suddenly responsible for another human being, I wasn't able to mask anything anymore. I wasn't able to cover it up. And I had to face all of the challenges that all of my life up till then that I'd just been masking all over. And actually, my challenges were everything. It was so normal to me that I wouldn't have labeled it as a challenge before I had my first son. But what I can now see was essentially crippling anxiety all of the time. And a bit like we were saying earlier, like the fear of labeling things or not wanting to judge and label things, like I would have cringed if somebody had labeled me as having anxiety at that time, I'd have been like, no, I'm fine, don't be ridiculous, you know. Crippling anxiety, enormous fear of judgment from others, which would have the which would essentially uproot me. I had this feeling, I don't know if anyone else gets this. I used to, and I'm still working with it a little bit now. I used to have this feeling, if I thought somebody had judged me for something, I would just feel completely uprooted, just like completely unsafe, like I didn't exist in that moment. And I had to do everything I could to try and appease that other person, to make sure that they weren't judging me anymore, or they didn't think that I'd done something wrong. You know, very early childhood patterning, very early childhood trauma, essentially complex PTSD. And that therefore meant that I thought that was normal, that I would fawn and be desperately codependent in every relationship, even with the person at the till at the supermarket. Like, it was just completely overwhelming all the time. So I would do my absolute best not to go and do things if I possibly could get away with it. And when I did, I was extremely good at putting this mask on, doing all of the people pleasing, and then afterwards just completely falling apart, just completely. And I thought I was good at pulling myself back together again, but actually my ways of pulling myself back together again were just completely unhealthy. And they weren't actually pulling me back together again. They were making me feel a little bit better in the moment, you know? There was no actual healing going on.
Yeah.
There was no understanding of myself. There was no understanding of the relationship patterns that were going on, because to dig into that would feel again like I'd just been completely uprooted, because I'd then be judging myself. Like, it was just this completely toxic, like awful, it was horrid. Horrid. And then the other thing alongside that, so that sort of is the bit from essentially the psychology aspect of what was going on for me and what I still work with today. And then the other part, which I didn't know was separate at the time, was overwhelm. And what I'm now knowing is overwhelm from essentially being so empathic, so intuitive, and so in tune with other people, with trees, with plants, with whole nations of people, like that's, and ancestors and spirits. Before I knew that that's what that was, I just felt like I'm going to do the swearing now that you said maybe that's going to happen. Just like a massive fuck up. I'd feel like, well, I'm crying at the, you know, and then I'd be laughing hysterically. And then I think a psychiatrist would have had an absolute field day with me. So bringing those two things together, my psychology and my intuitive stuff, being so switched on with no boundaries in either camp, just made for the biggest mess possible. It was ugly.
Yeah, that's a lot. And a lot of what you said really resonates. I hear you. Yeah. And with having your after your first child, like there's nowhere to escape all of that, is there? I think as you were talking, I remembered once in circle with you when we were doing there was something that came up, and I remember, like, it hit me, wow, like motherhood is the ultimate shadow work. Like, you have to face yourself and everything. There is no hiding yourself when you become a mother. It's that
really, they make you, don't they? And
you have no choice.
And I think the choice is you either do the work yourself, or you fall into the patriarchal patterning of, well, I have power over you, so you have to do as I say.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Because
it makes me
if you're
sad.
not going to face your own stuff, that's the only way it can work.
Yeah.
Because it's just crippling otherwise.
Yeah. So what was the point for you when you were like, right, enough, come on, enough now? Because I think we all, I don't know, for me, that was very much a right, enough. Let's change this. Did you have that point, or was it more of a gentler kind of process?
I'm not sure, there might have been, but I think maybe I might have blocked it out the exact moment. But there was just, I know there's mum guilt, parent guilt. I know we all have that. Hopefully less so, but
Yeah.
I know that that's there. But the crippling guilt that I had over, and I feel like I don't want to go into everything about this, so I'll just mention it a bit, but just the crippling guilt that I had for not being able to show up for my son in and not just in your average way, just in your, like, I struggled to love him. And that still makes me feel just so emotional, because I could see that he was lovable and I could see that the problem was me. And when you added that into what I talked about earlier, that fear of judgment and that complete lack of sense of self, and just feeling really uprooted if anyone challenged that. So for me to be challenging it myself was totally unbearable. And I knew that I had to do whatever I could to deal with it. Yeah. So there's a bit of a story which I won't go into because it'll be really long, but I'd always known that, oh, it looks like I'm telling a story. I'd always known that childbirth was going to be really important for me. And I didn't know exactly why. So when I fell pregnant with him, I started researching and trying to figure out what this was about. What is it that has always told me this is going to be so important? And anyway, I found I was just getting interested in healing work and energy work. And I was having a lot of therapy and energy work on me and for me. And the word shamanic kept popping up, and it just felt really important. And the night that I found out I was pregnant, I started researching to find out if there was such a thing as a shamanic midwife or a shamanic doula, or somebody that could hold me through the birthing process with some magic and some depth in that way. And I found who was to become my teacher early on, Jane Hardwick Collins, and she was in Australia. And I realized, well, I'm in England, so she can't be my midwife. So I was very sad about that. But then the midwife I did find to have a home birth with, my second midwife sat down with me, helped me breastfeed. And she said, oh, you know who you should meet, Ruth? You should meet Jane Hardwick Collins. But yeah, I'd love to meet Jane Hardwick Collins. Like, how do you know this woman? I said, oh, I've just invited her to come to England to come and teach. So the next year, just at the point where I was realizing, shit, I really need to sort this stuff out, Jane was here in the UK running her big process of, she calls it the 4 seasons journey, which is probably what I based a year-long initiation work on. And I sat there for that year with those women and for many months around it, doing all the work I could with Jane while she was in this country to help me. I didn't do it to learn it, to teach it. I was just like, this is the woman who is going to show me what I need. And it really did. And it was really challenging. I'd never sat in a women's circle before. And I found women really difficult. I found relationships with women really difficult. Found it really because of that fear of judgment.
Yeah.
And the idea of sitting in a group of women that I admired or found powerful was even more scary. like, whoa. So I'm really sending a lot of admiration back to my younger self for having the guts to go and do that, because that was scary. But when you, like we do now, like when you sit in a space that is actually set up and there is safety, that is brought in, that is literally created in the circle. You know, if I'd have gone to a women's circle where that hadn't happened for the first time, I would have run. I would have just run. So the fact that she did that was enormously important. So I'm forever grateful to her for that. And that work then was extremely powerful in my healing journey over those years. And then the other thing that happened with that was that I discovered that not only was it helpful to heal me, it was also, I felt rather like I was actually rather good at it. It was like, oh, this is you. This is what you do. And you intuit this work. And these people that you're sat with are admiring the fact that you can intuit this rather than thinking you're bonkers. And they're admiring the fact that you have huge feelings, and they're pointing out to you that the reason that you're feeling really sad is because that tree is really sad, not because you are really sad. Oh, and it was just everything to me. So yeah, the inner child work was massive, and we did that over that year, and I did lots of that since as well, and that really helped with the psychological bit that I talked about at the beginning, and we're bringing that work into, I think, what you mentioned earlier, a new piece of work that myself and Sally Parker are bringing out from February, called The Way Out, which is a 6-month healing program of intense healing in a small group to help work with that inner child, with your youth, with your psychology of your upbringing, and to help you feel safe within yourself again, or to help you feel safe, because many of us have actually never known what it feels like to feel safe for yourself. So the inner child work, there's that. And then the shamanic work, and it all heals all together, of course, but the soul retrieval work with the shamanic work, and the work with the moons and the cycles of a woman, that for me it was deeply magical and extremely healing. Like meeting in my soul retrieval work, sort of merging the two together, but meeting my younger self and helping her through some of those things that happened, and bringing back parts of my soul that I had no idea were lost. Like, we don't know in the Western culture that we could possibly lose pieces of soul. Like, what a strange concept is that? But essentially it's trauma. It's just another way of working with trauma and phrasing trauma. And to be able to visualize that and actually actively do that, and then see my life change from that moment for the better. And the things that I think the same for you, but the things that I have watched happen in my life since those healing moments have just completely astonished me. Like, they're more amazing, more beautiful, more abundant than I could ever have dreamed. And trust me, I dreamt big. I did. These things are like, what? And I just feel now like, I'm still doing my work. We're all still doing our work, and as I sit in circle with others, I'm very much in there with you. I'm doing it too. And it feels amazing to be at a place where I can look back on that story and look back on me as a new mum, for example, and just say, like, this is so small compared to what it actually is, but say it gets so much better.
Oh, it's so inspiring hearing you, Ruth, and thank you for sharing everything. Thank you for your bravery and your honesty, because I know that what you've shared, a lot of women resonate with, but don't have the bravery to say it. And yeah, I'm so grateful to you and the work that you do, because we have to always bring it back to ourselves, don't we? And through the healing, just to kind of see you, as you were talking, I could just see you as, you know, when you were starting the Jane Hardwicke Collins, the 4 seasons, you know, the amount of deep work that you did there. And I could just sense, you know, when we started talking about the ripple effect at the start, you know, I'm thinking, wow, that amount of work that you did on yourself, and the incredible amount of women, you know, the women that you're helping and working with every year, and seeing how and these are incredible, powerful women that you're working with. They blow my mind.
And just to add, they would be like, oh, that's not me. I'm not one of those powerful women. They're incredible, aren't they?
Oh my goodness. They just, yeah, they blow me away. They're amazing. So it just kind of, you're kind of solidifying this idea that we have to bring the healing back to ourselves, because it helps everybody, doesn't it? You know, we're not in this on our own, we're doing it all together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you are such an incredible mum. You really are.
I was just celebrating that this morning, actually, and that was such a journey, like the ultimate journey for me. And I can sometimes get a bit blasé about the enormous amount of shifts and changes that I brought into my life. And I was celebrating this morning having 3 really happy children, you know, and actually reflecting on this now with you has been really helpful, because I can celebrate it a little bit more based on remembering what it was like at the beginning.
Yeah, you need those moments, don't you? Like little benchmark moments to like, yeah, okay. The gratitude, isn't it? Yeah. Gratitude, yeah. Oh, amazing. So if someone is listening and you could just give them a little, you know, a little quick bit of advice of the next step to take to support themselves. I mean, that doesn't even feel big enough, but you know what I mean. Is there something, a little bit of advice that you could give?
So the thing that popped in as you asked was to be more you, to not beige out those bits of you that are actually really bold or really quiet or really whatever they are. Don't try and make yourself more what you might think is normal, because actually in being more of you and just gently practicing that, like being more of you, it means that you will bring in all of the people into your life that really love you, rather than really liking somebody that's a bit like everybody else.
I love that. Yeah. Turn yourself up a little bit. Yeah.
And we only say a little bit because that helps your nervous system. Like,
Yeah.
if you want to turn yourself full volume and that feels good, celebrate that too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, Ruth, it is absolute joy. I could just sit and talk to you all day. Thank you for being on. Where can people, so you mentioned the way out, where can people find you and with what you've got coming up?
So everything that I do is on my website, which is ruthcato.com. Ruth Cato is CATO.com. The way out is on there, up on the top menu, and so is the year-long work. I don't work, I have a few one-to-one slots every now and again, but I do mostly work with people one-to-one over a longer period of time. But get in touch, see what's on there. And yeah, thank you so much, Jane.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being on. Wait, let me see how I can stop this recording. Thank you very much for listening, everybody. We'll see you again. Thanks, Ruth.